Suella Braverman is let's be very clear. We use the description of her as being on the right. She's on the far right. She is a serious ideologue, and people don't often know what we mean when we talk about people being ideologues. It's about people who are not prepared to compromise, people who've got a particular political position, and they are absolutely rigid in it. They are sort of, if you like, fundamentalists when it comes to their opinions. And that is Suella Braverman. I mean, she's nicknamed in the legal profession as Cruella Braverman because of her position on immigration.
It's a double act that doesn't seem to be going down too well in the legal and judicial world. The reappointment of Suella Braverman as Home Secretary and Dominic Raab as Justice Secretary have been the proverbial lead balloon. But are politicians always unpopular in the legal world? Let's speak to Baroness Kennedy, well-known barrister, of course, and Labour member of the House of Lords. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Should we take them one at a time, or I don't know whether I mean, you might say that they can't be discussed one without the other. But Suella Braverman, first of all, what are your particular concerns? We put some of them to James Cleverly, the Foreign Secretary. Those were about the circumstances of her leaving. Obviously now she's been reappointed. But what are your concerns of that reappointment?
Suella Braverman is let's be very clear. We use the description of her as being on the right. She's on the far right. She is a serious ideologue, and people don't often know what we mean when we talk about people being ideologues. It's about people who are not prepared to compromise, people who've got a particular political position, and they are absolutely rigid in it. They are sort of, if you like, fundamentalists when it comes to their opinions. And that is Suella Braverman. I mean, she's nicknamed in the legal profession as Cruella Braverman because of her position on immigration. She is absolutely hardline on it, and it's really shocking for a minister, a Secretary of State, to have said that one of her dreams and obsessions was to see people being put on an aeroplane and sent to Rwanda,
right?
When they still hadn't been put through a proper process to decide whether they were people who'd suffered persecution or not, and that is shocking.
Baroness Kennedy, you know that is interesting what you say, but is this just one individual? Because clearly she's the Home Secretary, and we are focused on her beliefs and her policies. And yet, support for that particular policy, the Rwanda policy, was not. It wasn't particularly low, was it? There are people within the Tory Party who must be the same as Suella Braverman because they support that policy.
No, there are. I mean, this is the UKIP capture of a section of the Conservative Party, and for a short while under Liz Truss, they were actually at the very heart of government. What one had hoped with the arrival of Rishi Sunak was that we were going to have a sort of more sensible position. And although he's being presented at the moment as being someone with a more sensible position, and as this cabinet being a broad spread, it really isn't. It's a right-wing cabinet. The people who are more, if you like, sensible, I would say sensible, more centre-right, are not there. I mean, someone like Robert Buckland being pulled out. I mean, it is actually a very, very right-wing positioned government. And when I say right-wing, I'm talking about to the far right, not centre-right. And so Suella Braverman, let me just say about Suella Braverman, is that she's someone who does not believe in the European Convention on Human Rights. She's supported in that by the Justice Secretary, Dominic Raab. And together, this as a team are not going to do a lot for justice, for the protection of the rule of law, and for our reputation in the world.
Okay, let's talk about Dominic Raab then. Criminal barristers ended their strike and accepted the pay offer from the former Justice Secretary, Brandon Lewis. So Dominic Raab comes back in with a problem that had existed for a while that's been sorted. Perhaps we could have a kind of a fresh slate.
I mean, Brandon Lewis, I have to say, brought good sense to this, and it was under his short period in office that this deal was secured, and it's really been important because we have to restore the rule of law. We have to get the courts working again. We have to respect the fact that you cannot not pay the lawyers who are in the courts doing these important cases that keep the system going, and he did that. But we're back to the business of Dominic Raab, who was again a hardliner who just wouldn't move and refused to find a solution to this problem. And it's those sort of rigidities and people who are incapable of compromise that is not going to help this government to do a good job. And so I think that I share this with lots of lawyers. We do not have a high opinion of Suella Braverman, and this is not lawyers on the centre left. This is not lawyers who are those lefty lawyers that are traduced by this pair. This is lawyers across the piece who really do feel that the legal profession is being deprofessionalised, and to attack international law and not to defend it and to defend the rule of law is really alarming. And here are two lawyers who don't want to do that. And so I'm afraid they don't have the confidence of the legal profession. And I have to say that the business of putting in place someone who only last week was breaching serious rules about how you deal with information and passing them to pals, as Suella Braverman did. That was a breach of the ministerial code.
Okay.
I was hoping that we would see a return to those standards and integrity, but we're not. We're back to the old Boris Johnson thing of there's rules for some folk, but not for the rest.
Well, on that point, we put that to the Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, and he said that Suella Braverman has apologised for the mistake that she made, and clearly Rishi Sunak has confidence in her. We'll have to leave it there, but thank you.
There was no real ethical oversight of it. There's been no ethical officer in place to do that. It was really shocking.
Well, some people do agree with you on that, and some people seem to be willing to move on from that. Helena Kennedy, thank you very much. Baroness Helena Kennedy, of course, well-known barrister and Labour member of the House of Lords.